Today I'm breaking down 5 American cities that would fall first in a zombie apocalypse. We're counting down from barely survivable to completely hopeless. But before we rank anything, we need to set some rules so we're all on the same page here. In this scenario, the infection spreads through bites and fluid contact only. It's not airborne. And people turn after about 6 to 18 hours on average, and in rare cases it can take up to 48. That incubation time tosses a wrench into everything because people can get bitten in the morning, go home, sit in traffic, or walk into an ER before they turn that night. Due to that reason, things can spiral out of control pretty quickly. As for the type of zombies we're talking about here, slow and dumb, but dangerous in numbers. Now let's define what fall actually means. A city falls when half the power grid is down across major districts for 3 straight days, when emergency response times are pushing 6 hours or more across the entire city, when sewage lift stations start failing in multiple areas, when clean water turns unreliable for more than half the population, when cell networks go dark across most districts, and when central command can't coordinate large-scale defense or even basic movement anymore. That's what I mean when I say fall. And keep in mind that doesn't mean everyone's dead, it means the system is dead. And once the system starts dying, certain parts of it collapse first. Hospitals are one of those systems, and every city I mention will struggle with them because chaos will come from them. At first they're where people run for help, then they become points of mass infection. With a 6 to 18 hour incubation window, ERs will all fill before officials understand what's actually happening. Staff will get exposed, some will stay and some will leave. Federal teams or military medical units might try to deploy, but they need fuel, secure runways, and stable command chains. That takes time, and the infection already had a huge head start. At the same time, sewage and water systems depend on power and staff, so when pumps shut down, basements flood and waste backs up, tunnels turn unsafe, cell networks overload, then die when backup batteries drain. Once communication drops, coordination falls apart. With that framework in place, let's rank these cities from least worst to absolute worst. We'll start with Houston as the least shit place of the 5. Don't get it twisted though, you still don't want to be here. The Houston metro area has around 7.8 million people. That's a huge number, but they're spread across a very wide footprint. But even when people are that spread out, it's still a major issue. More people means more folks getting bitten and infected, more traffic jams, and more panic, all resulting in more chaos. All this means more chances for zombies to find new hosts before anyone fully grasps what's going on. Scale alone can overwhelm response systems, even in a city that isn't tightly packed. That said, since Houston is spread across a wide area, it is harder for zombies to concentrate in one tight area the same way they would in a dense city. People aren't stacked on top of each other the way they are in Manhattan either. Many households also own firearms, even if it also increases the risk of chaotic shootings during panic. Fortunately, there are rural retreat options on the outskirts that will buy you time, but Houston still has major weak points. The city holds large petrochemical plants. Many have automatic shutdown systems, but long-term staffing loss raises the risk of leaks, fires, or toxic plumes. Even limited hazard zones can cut off key roads. Flood control systems need monitoring too. Heavy rain without oversight can flood large sections of the city. Sewage can mix with flood water. And once cell networks fail across such a wide footprint, coordination becomes difficult. Without satellite phones, you'd be shit out of luck. So not only do zombies push Houston towards collapse, but also because strain spreads across fuel, flood control, industry, and communication at the same time. Once those systems break down together, the wide footprint becomes impossible to manage, and the city crosses the collapse line. Alright, next up is Los Angeles. LA's county has close to 10 million people. That's more than most entire states, or even some countries. Iceland, for example, has 400,000 people. Think about what that means in a zombie outbreak. You're not just dealing with a small cluster you can isolate. You're dealing with a population the size of a small nation, all sharing roads, hospitals, power lines, ports, and water systems. Even if only a small percentage get bitten in the first 24 hours, that's still tens of thousands of infected inside one metro area. Hospitals will overload almost instantly. Highways will lock up, and emergency services will stretch thin. Scale alone becomes the city's biggest threat. The more people you have, the more contact points, the more panic, and the more bite chains happening at the same time. At that size, the outbreak won't just spread, it'll compound. LA fortunately is spread out. That slows the spread of zombies since you're not stacking millions in vertical towers. But LA runs on long-distance infrastructure. Aqueducts stretch hundreds of miles, reservoirs hold water, but treatment and pressure control needs workers. If staff stops showing up, reliability slips over 1 to 2 weeks. Freeways are a lifeline here, but when panic hits, interchanges freeze. Abandoned cars block lanes for miles. Zombies move between stalled vehicles, while military and supply trucks sit trapped behind the gridlock. Wildfires make things worse. With fewer crews available, a wind-driven fire can push entire neighborhoods toward the clogged highways. Even a moderate moderate earthquake during grid strain can rupture water mains and damage overpasses. Los Angeles collapses in stages. Water weakens, roads choke, ports stall, communication fades. As zombies spread through stalled traffic and dark neighborhoods, each failed stage feeds the next. Eventually, the systems that hold the metro together stop sinking, and Los Angeles falls through cumulative breakdown. Alright, now we move on to more dangerous territory with Chicago. The Chicago metro area has about 9.5 million people, packed into a tighter footprint than LA. Chicago combines density with harsh winters. Once systems fail, zombies move through tight corridors created by snow, ice, and narrow streets. The elevated trains spread infection early. Later, those same tracks give infected a raised path across neighborhoods. Chicago is also a major freight rail hub. If rail traffic stops, food flow across the Midwest tightens, and shortages hit fast. Lake Michigan provides water, but treatment plants still need power and chemicals. So while the grid holds, the people here will have a water source. That said, sewage systems rely on electricity. If pumps fail, lower districts will flood with waste. Winter makes things even harder for the people here. Without heat, indoor spaces won't keep you alive and healthy for very long. Without plows, snow will narrow streets. And frozen bodies in the streets and apartments will also block halls and stairs, making it hard to navigate. Chicago falls when infection pressure collides with climate pressure. The cold speeds grid failure, limits mobility, and traps people indoors with spreading infection. Once heat, power, and food distribution fail together, the city tips past recovery. Alright, now on to the top two. The Miami metro area has over 6 million people, and a large portion live along the coast and high-rises. Miami sits between ocean and wetlands. When zombies start filling evacuation routes, movement compresses north. Causeways from barrier islands to the mainland narrow into tight choke points. Picture thousands of cars packed bumper to bumper on a strip of road with water on both sides. If even a few infected turn in that traffic, the entire line locks in place. A lot of people in Miami live in tall condo towers as well. Elevators stop when power fails. Stairwells become crowded escape routes. If infection spreads inside one building, you can have hundreds of residents trapped above ground level with limited exits. Boats offer escape, but fuel and dock space limit how many people can actually leave. Not everyone owns a boat either, and not everyone knows how to operate one. Marinas would become a wasteland within hours. Miami also has a shallow water table. Flooding happens easily without major storms. If the grid fails and pump systems stop working, streets fall fast. Add a hurricane into the mix, and you now have a storm surge, power loss, and zombie movement all at once. Hospitals near the coast will overload quickly because both residents and visitors. And with heat and humidity and no stable power for air conditioning, indoor spaces become dangerous pretty damn fast. Miami collapses because it has nowhere to expand. Geography traps movement, vertical living traps residents, water management is fragile, storm risk never goes away. Once zombies clog causeways, elevators shut down, and pumps fail at the same time. The metro has no buffer left. It folds quickly. And finally, we make it to the worst case of the five, New York City. The New York metro area has nearly 20 million people. The city itself has over 8 million packed into dense boroughs. That's a population larger than most countries on Earth, compressed into a relatively small space. We touched on what I'm about to say earlier, but this is an even bigger issue in a place like New York City. In a byte-based outbreak, density multiplies contact. Apartment buildings here stack hundreds of people on top of each other. Elevators, stairwells, shared hallways, subway platforms, corner stores, office towers, all of it creates constant contact between strangers. Even a small cluster of infected in one borough doesn't stay small for long. New York isn't one layout either. For example, Manhattan is dense and vertical. The Bronx and Brooklyn hold huge residential blocks. Queens mixes urban density with tighter suburban pockets. Staten Island feels looser, but it still relies on the same regional systems. Every borough shares utilities, transport, food distribution, and medical networks. Manhattan being an island changes a lot, because bridges, tunnels, and ferries handle most movement in and out. When evacuation begins, those routes clog almost immediately. With a delayed incubation window, some bitten people turn while stuck in traffic. A stalled bridge becomes a trap, and a tunnel becomes a sealed corridor with nowhere to run. Now let's toss zombies into the mix. New York's subway system moves millions of riders a day. In the early phase, it spreads infection across borough lines before anyone understands the true scale. During the failure phase, trains will stall underground when the power cuts out, platforms will go dark, and riders will try to move through the tunnels on foot. Unfortunately, zombies don't need light, they follow sound, so these people are unknowingly walking into their demise. With that said, we need to talk about buildings, because New York has tons of them. The high-rise buildings here multiply risk in a way few cities can match. When power fails, elevators stop. When water pressure drops, upper floors lose water first. Fire suppression weakens. One major fire in a dense block can force thousands into the street at once, and once stairwells clog, escape routes narrow. And to make matters worse, hospitals in New York operate near capacity even on normal days. With millions of residents plus commuters and visitors, ERs fill almost immediately. Once medical staff start getting exposed and response times exceed hours instead of minutes, public confidence collapses. Food supply is also fragile here. Grocery stores rely on constant truck deliveries. Shelves would empty in days during a collapse. And with roads blocked and ports strained, resupply would come to a halt. Now you have millions of people in vertical housing, with limited food, limited water pressure, failing power, and zombies moving floor to floor. Outer boroughs may hold slightly longer due to lower density in some neighborhoods, but they still depend on shared power, transit, and logistics. Once Manhattan fragments and zombies spill outward, those areas don't function independently. Grid failure in one borough stresses the others. New York falls first because everything stacks at once. Extreme density accelerates bite chains. Vertical living traps people above ground. Island geography bottlenecks evacuation. The subway spreads infection underground and across districts. Sanitation failure contaminates infrastructure, and hospitals overload under sheer volume. When those factors collide under a delayed incubation window, you don't get a slow unraveling. You get cascading failure in the most compressed urban environment in the country. And once that cascade starts in New York, it moves faster here than anywhere else on this list. Cities don't collapse in isolation. Zombies don't respect city limits. People flee before systems fully fail. With a delayed incubation window, some carry infection into nearby towns before they turn. Alright guys, if you made it to the end, I appreciate that very much, and YouTube thinks you'll like this video. If you've already seen it, I got a lot more just like it.